So if we think about something, the sort of cliched music you might think about when people sort of talk about, going to like one of those therapy places to get a massage. And there's just sort of long chords playing, maybe it's got some rainforesty sounds in the background or whatever. And I'm not talking about the genre of music, I'm just talking about what we have here is music that is just, in this case, setting the theme of you being relaxed and calm, there's nothing going on. Now, if you change those chords from major to minor, the exact same piece of music may all of a sudden go long, kind of relaxed, well, yeah, but I'm feeling a little bit isolated. You change it and, change the chords again, and all of a sudden it can be these long notes are kind of like, well, I'm not just isolated, but there's something just a bit uncomfortable and dissonant going on. I'm a little bit unsettled and scared. So all of these long pieces of long sort of slow moving things, one of the reasons about that is that you're not getting repetitive, repetitive over and over and over again theme. What you're getting is you're getting far slower movement in what's going on from the musical point of view. Now, traditionally, that would actually be a problem because when you're talking about sound files, the longer a sound file is, the more memory it takes up. And there's your problem. Oh, I can't have nice long pieces of music because I'll run out of memory. Not with the method I'm about to go through here. So what we've got here is even in a combat type situation where you're like, well, for my combat situation, I kind of want to have a bit more energy behind it, you can still use these particular techniques. All right. So the first thing we've got here is to establish the idea that in any game, actually, in any single game, repetition is should be public enemy number one as far as your sound production is concerned. Avoid it at all costs. From the musical point of view, melodic stuff, we don't need a melody. It's not a piece of music that we are sitting and listening to. It's not the radio. It is something that is supposed to be there to just help set the scene, help establish a feeling, help, again, support the narrative from the point of view of I'm out in the middle of the desert. So it's kind of, big, sparse, open space type sort of sounds. Or I'm in a tight, enclosed cavern. You can still do this with long sort of musical passages, but you would actually use it more dissonant sort of sounds. So, the whole idea of a piano, get your hand, just hit 4 or 5 notes at once, that sort of feeling, same sort of thing. But it doesn't need to be sort of lots of melodies that are repeating and getting on people's nerves. All right, so we're going to have a look at something here. I'm going to have a play around with one particular sound file here, because what we are discussing is the whole idea that you have to worry about memory when you're building a game. And this is quite often something that happens where people are like, well, yeah, look, we'd like to put in all these different sort of sound effects and everything like that, but we don't have the space. This is one of the most common things I get all the time. We can't afford those sounds. So let's just play around with some of the sounds that we have here. And I'm not going to explain how Fmod works. We don't have time to do that as well. There are tutorials online, etc., that you can find on exactly how Fmod's doing this. I'll go through some of the basics of exactly what I'm doing, but not the functionality of Fmod. But what we have here is the sound of a shotgun. Now, actually what we have here is 3 different sounds of a shotgun. And the reason why I've got 3 different sounds of a shotgun is for the variety of it, to move away from just having one single sound. Now, if we were really, really, really pushed for memory, we could get away with one single sound, and I'll go into that in a second. But wherever you can add any level of variety, you are making it sound more realistic. And that's what it's all about. It's not about necessarily making it sound better, but even with those 3, which are only very subtly different, if I just sit here and play this one over and over and over, your brain very quickly starts to realize that's exactly the same sound. Whereas as soon as I go to this one, ooh, different. And that's what it's all about. Just that point of difference is really important. All right, so we've got our sound, and in the game it would randomly draw from those. So great, we've got 3 different sounds to draw from. So the shotgun's not going to sound always exactly the same. So we have our shotgun. Killing zombies, awesome. Well, okay, I've just walked into the next room and I've just picked up a grenade. Kills more zombies in one go, even better. Oh, okay, now I've got to make the sound of a grenade. But look, this is an iPhone, we're really, really pushing. We want to keep this game really, really tiny. Well, see, that's fairly easy from the point of view of if we're trying to save some memory, we could do something like this. That was actually a bit too big for a grenade. Whoops, I went too far. So let's go back about this far. Now what do we got? All right, yeah, that works for a grenade. So our one sound, as I've just demonstrated, can be used for our shotgun, our grenade, and, I don't know, a howitzer over there. Now, what did I do there? I changed the pitch. I know for a fact that to do this in code is one line of code. Sorry, one line of code that says play shotgun and a second line of code that says pitch, shift, 15.58 semitones or whatever. All right, so again, there's your first lesson. One of the most powerful tools used in sound production, and pretty much what I realized after years and years and years of looking for all the magic buttons to make fantastic sound effects, is that all the best manipulation of sound is done with three really simple, straightforward manipulations: pitch, amplitude, and time. And if you look at the original Star Wars and you look at it in context, think of it in 1977 and the sound design in 1977, it's really bloody good. That was all done with reel-to-reel tapes. They wanted to make sound effects. They had to, like, seriously get a piece of tape, cut it with scissors and glue it to another piece of tape, and then speed it up and slow it down. These are the traditional methods of sound production, and I believe they are still the best. Using special effects for this and that and everything like that can get you some interesting effects, but if you don't understand those core mechanics, you're missing out on really all the major tools to play with. And the point is that because these tools are the simplest ones, they are also very, very easy to manipulate. Again, in code, changing amplitude, changing pitch are not very difficult. And I'll give you another example of this. All right, so I have a sound in here. And this is one of my favorite sounds to show off. Because it sucks. It's lame. Clang. Now, it's not. It actually sounds like somebody's hitting a letterbox with a baseball bat or a cricket bat. It's actually not. I think it's one of those old square biscuit tins from the 1950s or whatever that I found on a farm somewhere, and I kicked it a bit and I recorded it. All right. But the sound of our metal box, we wouldn't necessarily use this in the game. However, one of the other things about the way pitching works and sound works and everything like that, as I was saying before, is that sound, the longer a sound, the more memory it takes up. So this particular sound, as it is currently, would be, in fact, this one's actually in Ogg Vorbis format, so it's even smaller. But even in a 48 kilohertz 16-bit WAV file, that sound is so short that it's probably going to be between 100 and 200 kilobytes. So the size of a text message.